Hello, this video will provide some guidance for part 3 of the discussion, where we'll be discussing weather systems that are driving today's and this weekend's weather. We begin by discussing the air masses influencing the state of Vermont, which is shown by the green dot over here. There are 4 main air masses that affect Vermont, the first being this continental polar air mass, the second being this marine polar air mass seen here over the Atlantic. The third is the moist or marine tropical air mass, which can be found over the Gulf of Mexico and the tropical Atlantic. Finally, there is the dry continental tropical air mass, which develops over the southwestern portion of the United States. The continental tropical air mass typically develops in desert areas. This is a picture of Monument Valley in Utah. It's along the Utah-Arizona border. And well, what you can see with this particular air mass, it develops in an area that's very dry. And if you sweep across here, you can see that there's absolutely no water present. There's still some moisture over here that comes in from the Pacific, but you can see the surface here is absolutely arid and dry. It's also in the tropics, which means that it's also warm, which helps to evaporate any moisture that would be present on the surface. The other continental air mass that we deal with is the continental polar air mass, which basically develops over the boreal forest of Canada, which looks something like what you see here. It's actually from Flin Flon, Manitoba, in northern Manitoba. And over here you can see it's made up mostly of rock and forest, mostly rock that's bare. That tends to be very dry. Water drains very quickly from it. And this modifies the air above it. It makes that air mass very dry and very cool, since you're in polar areas over here. Naturally, in winter it gets downright cold, but in the summertime it generally provides temperatures like we're getting today. When we get a northwestern wind, it's this air mass that's basically influencing us. This, of course, is representative of the marine tropical air mass, which develops in the tropics. You can actually see this air mass being formed with all the clouds that you see back here. Those actually represent moisture that leaves the surface of the ocean and finds its way into the atmosphere. And it's actually this air mass that provides most of the precipitation in the northeastern portion of the United States. This video here represents the marine polar air mass. This is over the North Atlantic Ocean. These are rough seas where there's lots of wind and lots of waves. And those waves and winds, they transport a lot of moisture into the atmosphere. Again, this is a polar air mass, so there's not as much sun up there. It tends to be cooler as well. How did these air masses get to Vermont? Well, there we look at high and low pressure systems and how they interact. The analogy I like to use for high and low pressure systems is that they form sort of an egg beater pattern. So if you can picture a low pressure system sort of circulating counterclockwise in this direction, and a high pressure system moving clockwise in this direction, you can see when they put together, they make a little bit of an egg beater type of pattern. And if you want to see how that works, you can click yourself on this hand mixer video, which will also give you some handy tips on how to actually use it in the kitchen. Right? That's beside the point. You can entertain yourself with that later on. So more to the point is how this egg mixer or hand mixer interacts with the air masses we're talking about. In this case, we show an example of a high pressure system over the continent and a low pressure system over the North Atlantic circulating in this direction. You'll notice that the wind in between them comes from the northwest and goes towards the southeast over here, represented by this blue arrow over here. And that brings in all this cool continental polar air into the area of Vermont. And that's actually what we've been experiencing the past couple of days, being Thursday and Friday. The second most common type of pattern is this situation over here, where you have a low pressure center over the continent and a high pressure center off the coast here over the Atlantic. And you can see in between the two, you have sort of the southerly flow that brings this moist or marine tropical air mass into the region of Vermont. And that actually provides most of the precipitation that we see in the summer over the northeastern portion of the continent. A somewhat more rare situation is this configuration shown here, where you have a low pressure system over the northwestern part of North America and a high pressure system that sort of extends into the Gulf of Mexico over here. And if you look at the kind of circulation that creates with this clockwise circulation here and this counterclockwise circulation over the northwestern part of the continent, is a southwesterly wind, a wind coming from the southwest and moving towards the northeast, that brings this dry desert air into the region of Vermont. Finally, here you have a situation with a low pressure system over the southwestern portion of the U.S. circulating in a counterclockwise sense here. And this high pressure system that's sort of extending into the Gulf of Mexico, centered over the Bahamas here, or perhaps Bermuda, and that circulates in a clockwise circulation. So between the two, you see that you have this warm, humid marine tropical air being transported into the region of Vermont. Now, the Gulf of Mexico tends to be hotter. It's a very small basin here, and it tends to be hotter than the surrounding oceans of the Pacific and the Atlantic. It also tends to be more humid because of that, and hence, when we get sort of this water vapor and moist tropical air moving in from the south this way, from the Gulf of Mexico, that tends to lead to the most extreme precipitation events that Vermont sees. So finally, and this is a rare situation, probably more common along the coast of New England, is to have a high pressure system over here to the west, perhaps to the northwest, circulating in this direction. That would be clockwise. And with a low pressure system here circulating counterclockwise over the tropical Atlantic here. And when you get that, then you get winds moving in from the east or northeast, and that tends to bring in this marine polar air mass into New England over here. But like I said, much more common along the coast of Maine if you're in Portland or Boston than in Vermont. The White Mountains tend to shield Vermont from this air mass. Nevertheless, you occasionally have this type of air mass moving into Vermont, and in that case, you typically get a lot of drizzle and fog. You'd see this more in November than you would in the summer. So if you'd like more information on these air masses, all you have to do is click on the images here in the middle of these images. If you click on those images, it'll take you to this web page where you can read a little bit more about how these air masses are named and why they are characterized in the way that we do them here.